Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
After weeks of public divisions between members of the Cabinet over Brexit, the Chancellor Philip Hammond and the International Trade Secretary Liam Fox have made a joint pledge saying that a transition period will not be a backdoor to remaining in the EU. The two have previously put forward opposing views on Brexit. Here's our political correspondent, Ben Wright.
Not always heading in the same direction. While the Chancellor Philip Hammond wanted Britain to stay in the EU, Trade Secretary Liam Fox has long believed in Brexit. And in headlines over the summer, their disagreements over what should happen after Britain leaves the EU in March 2019 have been clear. Today, though, a united front. Writing a joint piece in the Sunday Telegraph, they say there must not be a cliff-edge break when Britain leaves the EU in March 2019. They will seek a time-limited transition period with the EU, a victory for Philip Hammond. But during this period, Britain will leave the EU's single market and the customs union, a win for Mr Fox.
Well, I think it's actually very encouraging because over the last 3 or 4 weeks we've seen conflicting signals sent out by various members of the Cabinet, and now it does look as if someone has said to Mr Fox and Mr Hammond, we need to see unity.
The customs union sets EU-wide import tariffs. The single market allows free trade and the movement of people. Ministers say the UK can leave both while still giving business confidence during our departure from the EU.
It sounds worryingly to me as if the price that Philip Hammond has had to pay for a transitional arrangement has been to sign up to us leaving the single market and the customs union. I think that's a dreadful mistake for the future of our economy, for jobs and prosperity in Britain.
It's in Brussels, all this will have to be hammered out. The EU insists progress must be made on sorting out the terms of the divorce before the UK's future relationship can be discussed. And one issue the EU wants clarity on is how the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic will work after Brexit. This week, the government will publish its formal position paper on the issue, expected to include plans to give Irish citizens the right to move freely into the UK after Brexit. This week, ministers will also set out their thinking on how a new customs arrangement with the EU might work after Brexit. And more position papers will follow through the summer in a clear effort to scotch criticism that ministers don't have a plan and are divided. It's also intended to put pressure on Brussels to crack on with talking about Britain's future relationship with the EU sooner rather than later. But the clock is ticking, and both sides know the 2-year window for doing a deal is already slipping by fast. Ben Wright, BBC News, Westminster.
Here, after a summer of infighting, Theresa May's cabinet appears to have found some common ground on Brexit. Philip Hammond, the most pro-Remain minister in her government, and Liam Fox, a staunch Brexiteer, have come to an agreement on what they want to see happen when we leave the European Union. Well, our political reporter Dan Hewitt is here. Dan, what have they had to say then?
Well, one of the big questions that ministers have been publicly grappling with is whether or not there will be a transition period when Britain leaves the EU in March 2019, and whether in that period Britain will remain members of the single market and the customs union, which allow tariff-free trade between the two. Now, Philip Hammond had suggested that we would. Liam Fox and others feared that was his attempt to water down Brexit. But today the two have come together and said that Britain will seek this interim period and will leave the single market and the customs union in order to seek new free trade deals elsewhere. They have said that businesses need to have confidence that there will not be a cliff edge when we leave the EU in just over 20 months' time. That is why we believe a time-limited interim period will be important to further our national interest and give businesses greater certainty. But it cannot be indefinite, and it cannot be a backdoor to staying in the EU. What they haven't said, though, is how long that interim period will be. But this show of unity will no doubt please the Prime Minister, who returns from a holiday this week.
OK, Dan Hewitt, thank you.
Now here, ministers who've been at polar opposites of the Brexit debate have joined forces to reassure businesses there'll be no cliff edge after Britain leaves. Philip Hammond and Liam Fox insisted that the transition period wouldn't be an excuse for Britain to stay inside the EU by the back door. But there are still plenty of hurdles to overcome. Here's Diana Magnin.
High summer holiday season and Parliament's in recess. The Queen Bee still tramping wheat fields. Her cabinet, though, are keeping busy. With 20 months to go till Britain exits the EU, sunnier skies after those early Brexit storms. Chancellor Philip Hammond and our man in charge of trade, Liam Fox, putting on a united front. Today they penned a joint article in the Sunday Telegraph designed to play down reports of cabinet discord over the UK's Brexit strategy. In it, they say that in order for our economy to remain strong, businesses need to have confidence that there will not be a cliff edge when we leave the EU. That is why we believe a time-limited interim period will be important, but it cannot be indefinite. It cannot be a backdoor to staying in the EU.
No more fluffy thinking from the British side is presumably the message for Brussels. Britain will have a transitional arrangement in place, but will be outside of the customs union and of the single market, and therefore free to start new trading arrangements with other countries as soon as we leave the EU.
The government also says it'll publish this week a series of policy papers that will lay down the groundwork for the next round of Brexit negotiations, due at the end of this month. They're meant to set out how to handle the thorny issue of Ireland, Northern Ireland and a possible border between, and how to make sure goods continue to be available across the EU and UK. Of course, it's the Irish issue that's the most emotive. The border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland has long been invisible thanks to EU membership and a hard-won peace. But after March 2019, this red line becomes the EU's border with the UK, and goods crossing in and out will need some form of customs control. That could work in the UK's favour, forcing Brussels to move beyond divorce issues and actually start a conversation on the shape of things to come.
And this is where I think David Davis will use some leverage, because he knows that Northern Ireland needs to be agreed early, but he knows that Northern Ireland is tied up with the question of customs. So he's trying to leverage, I think, that question of Northern Ireland to get an agreement on some kind of transitional arrangement on customs, because he knows it's so important for UK business.
Holiday season ends soon, and with the clock ticking on Brexit, a laser-like focus on Britain's future could not come soon enough.